Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, we do this every single day. Subscribe below, check the bell to be a part of this exclusive music channel, a virtual music museum here on YouTube. A lot of this content you just won't find anywhere else. We also have a Patreon where we have exclusive content. Check us out there. Your support helps us a lot and we reward you handsomely for it. Now, a while back, we celebrated Phil Collins as an artist. He is really the most successful artist to have jumped back and forth many times from solo to a band successfully. Like I said, I want to discuss his tenure in the 80s with Genesis. Genesis originated in Surrey, England in '67. They have more of a folk sound that evolved into elaborately produced conceptual progressive rock productions. The initial lineup were Charterhouse boarding school buddies Peter Gabriel on vocals, Mike Rutherford on bass and rhythm guitar, Anthony Phillips on lead guitar, replaced by Steve Hackett in '71, Tony Banks, the great Tony Banks on keyboards, and Chris Stewart on drums, who was soon replaced by John Silver, with Phil Collins coming on board as the band's drummer in '71. Their debut album in '69 was a collection of early demos titled From Genesis to Revelation. The LP flopped commercially, but it did garner critical acclaim, cultish appreciation. The music on the first 7 Genesis albums released from 1970 through '77 were filled with long, complicated avant-garde arrangements. Their live shows were extremely theatrical, highlighted by the striking performance art of frontman Peter Gabriel, who changed personality on stage wearing bizarre facial makeup and provocative costumes. Of course, Gabriel left in '75 to pursue what he initially called experimental interests outside of music. But we all know that Peter Gabriel earned extraordinary success after he broke away from Genesis, beginning with his first single as a solo act, Salisbury Hill, a spiritual pilgrimage translated to music that rose to number 13 on the UK singles chart in '77.
He said, "Grab your things, I'm gonna take you home."
Of course, many more acclaimed albums and songs would follow. More to come on that for sure. Love Peter Gabriel. Guitarist Steve Hackett, who joined the band when Phil Collins did in '71, departed a year after Gabriel in '76 with hopes of establishing a solo career. The release of their 1978 album, And Then There Were Three, solidified the prevailing Genesis nucleus of Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks, and Phil Collins. The band's commercial success increased dramatically from that point forward, although they continued to incorporate elements of their progressive rock heritage into their recordings. The 80s really marked the transition by Genesis to craft tighter, more singles-oriented songs that generated newfound prosperity in America, where they became one of the most prolific groups of the decade. Now, we'll cover all of the periods of Genesis as a group down the road, but I wanted to start with the 80s as that's the decade where I discovered this amazing band. So here is my Genesis 80s fiver. Now, first, an honorable mention, Misunderstanding. The second pop hit in America for Genesis, outperforming their first top 40 single in the US, Follow You, Follow Me, which peaked at number 23. Misunderstanding rose to number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1980 and shot to number 1 in Canada. Misunderstanding was the first song that Phil Collins solely wrote that Genesis recorded. I mean, it's hard to believe. But during his first 8 years with Genesis, Phil Collins not only didn't write lyrics, he didn't consider himself any good at it. Incredible.
There must be some misunderstanding.
During his much talked about discord with his first wife and their subsequent breakup, Phil Collins poured his sadness into writing songs and discovered his incredible talent for songwriting, emerging into one of the most revered lyricists, in my opinion, of his time. 2 of his early songs, Please Don't Ask and Misunderstanding, were included on the sensational art rock tour de force, Duke. Number 5, Duchess. Man, this ethereal 6-minute and 37-second rock symphony chronicles the cascading career of a diva, from her rise to fame, the struggle to stay on top, and her downfall. It was written as the second part of what the band members called a 30-minute suite and evolved from Genesis jam sessions in '79 that were included on the Duke album. Duchess swells with operatic intensity, dramatizing the song's tragic tale of a fallen superstar. And then there was the time that she performed when nobody called for more, and soon every time she stepped into the light, they really let her know the score. but she dreamed of the times when she sang all her songs and everybody cried for more. It was the first track where Genesis used the effects of a Roland drum machine in a recording. The same drum machine was later used prominently in Phil Collins' epic In the Air Tonight in 1981. Prior to the 1980 release of Duke, Collins was an unheralded vocalist, but his nascent status as one of rock's most powerful singers coincided with the outset of the 80s. Duchess showcases the diaphragmatic gusto of Phil's amazing voice with escalating vigor and sensitivity. The unsung hero, though, on Duchess has got to be keyboardist Tony Banks, who is so masterful at creating the mood of a piece with his instrumental expression. Banks is quite the impresario of the Genesis sound. It's the keyboard arrangement and execution by Tony Banks that gives Duchess its emotional complexion. The starry-eyed, whimsical synthesizer in the first movement that amplifies with the story of the heroine's ascent. The wild, spinning tone in the middle of the song depicting the pinnacle of her stardom, when all she had to do was step into the light and everyone would start to roar. Then the bitter, maudlin piano solo at the song's sorrowful ending. It's just breathtaking musicality from Tony Banks, one of rock's greatest cinematographers. Truly a masterpiece that everybody needs to experience. Go listen to it. Number 4, the third single from the Genesis blockbuster album Invisible Touch, Land of Confusion. Now, although Genesis wasn't known to make political statements in their music per se, Land of Confusion reflected the concern and the frustration about the Cold War conflict between the US and Soviet Russia that was pretty much everyone's mind in '86. It was all over pop culture too. You had Russians by Sting in the movies, you had Rocky IV and Red Dawn. Anyway, Mike Rutherford wrote the lyrics for Land of Confusion, and the trio created a musical arrangement featuring a penetrating drum beat and whirling guitar riffs that gave the track a furrowed brow anger and defiance so powerful. It went to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. It went to number 11 on the mainstream rock chart, number 8 in Canada, number 7 in Germany, and number 14 in the UK. It's just such a powerful song, like I said. The music video, though, just as iconic. It took several stabs at President Ronald Reagan's perceived flippancy about the use of nuclear weapons. Again, every 80s kid remembers this video because of the puppets that were created by Peter Fluck and Roger Law from Spitting Image, and caricatures of Ronald and Nancy Reagan.
Good night, honey.
Sweet dreams, dear.
They also had the 3 members of Genesis in there. Always loved Spitting Image, the TV show. I wanted those puppets so bad. We even had it in Idaho. So 80s. Land of Confusion is such an effectual song that really resonated with those of us coming of age at that time in 86, 87. And yet today, Rutherford's lyrics sung by Phil Collins are prophetic, as they seem like they're written for today. I mean, first verse, now did you read the news today? They say the danger's gone away, but I can see the fire still alight, burning into the night. And then the pre-chorus, too many men, too many people making too many problems. And not much love to go around. Can't you see this is the land of confusion? The bridge is beautifully performed with words of comfort. I remember long ago when the sun was shining, yes, and the stars were bright all through the night, and the sound of your laughter as I held you tight so long ago.
So long ago.
Now, the band Disturbed recorded a really cool cover of Land of Confusion in 2006. Their version was immensely popular. It reached number 1 on the hot mainstream rock chart. And as a tie to that last lyric I talked about, in the Disturbed remake, lead singer Dave Draymond changed the original Genesis lyric and the sound of your laughter to "In the wake of this madness." It's the chorus where we find some hope or really some advice. It depends on if we're willing to listen. Now, this is the world we live in, and these are the hands we're given. Use them, and let's start trying to make it a place worth fighting for.
This is the world we live in. And these are
Number 3, That's All, the second single from the self-titled Genesis album released in '83. That's All was the first top 10 pop hit in America for Genesis, number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 2 on the mainstream rock chart, number 16 in the UK, number 14 in Canada. That's All was intended to be a basic composition mirroring the melodic structure of a song by the Beatles. It starts off with another memorable keyboard melody created by Tony Banks. Banks came up with the song's pervading melody by experimenting with Mike Rutherford's guitar samples on an emulator until he found the right tempo and chord progression.
just as I thought it was going all right. I found out I'm wrong when I
Of course, with a knock you up the side of the head vocal by Phil Collins, I don't care what the haters say. I maintain that Phil Collins is one of the elite vocalists of the era. He starts off pretty subtle with this and then gets pretty perturbed, pretty pissed off. Phil mixes up his drumming on That's All, sliding a very sneaky placement of the hi-hat and emulating Ringo Starr, who was a major influence on Phil. To me, this is two songs in one with its unique structure because to me, it's not verse-chorus, it's more like chorus-bridge.
But why does it always seem to be me looking at you with you?
Or bridge-chorus, however you define it.
But I love you more than I wanted.
But a classic by Genesis that would be a small flame that would start a fire for numerous top 10 hits for the band into the 90s. Number 2, Invisible Touch. A woman that uses her irresistible power over men despite her disquieting behavior. She takes control and slowly tears you apart.
It takes control and slowly tears you apart.
Invisible Touch boosted the airplay cloud of Genesis to a whole new level when the song rocketed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the mainstream rock chart. Went to number 15 in the UK, number 6 in Canada. Of course, it was the title track to the album that spawned 5 singles that hit the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 from 86 to 87. Genesis actually being the first band to accomplish that feat. That's amazing. I remember misunderstanding the lyrics to this song as a kid. I thought that Phil was singing Vizzy on top shit. I was like, oh my gosh, Phil Collins swore. And also, who is this Vizzy person?
Invisible touch, it takes control and slowly.
My sister, like, no, he's saying get me on top shift, like he's driving a stick shift. I think I was 10 or 11. Phil Collins actually did swear in the live versions. He changes the part where he says, and though she will mess up your life, to... In the 2000 film American Psycho, Patrick Bateman, the lead character played by Christian Bale, called Invisible Touch the group's undisputed masterpiece, praised the song for being an epic meditation on intangibility. Of course, he was right.
It's an epic meditation on intangibility.
I mean, who are we to argue with a twisted yuppie from the 80s that murdered his coworker with an axe? He also offered great commentary on Huey Lewis and the News, which I agree with as well.
He's been compared to Elvis Costello, but I think Huey has a far more bitter, cynical sense of humor.
The song was indeed the band's highest charting song on the Billboard Hot 100 and an infectious pop classic. Phil Collins revealed that Prince's composition, Glamorous Life, which Sheila E. made a huge hit in '84, was an inspiration for Invisible Touch. Collins is very passionate about his love for R&B pop, such as music by Earth, Wind & Fire, Prince, and all those wonderful Motown hits. Rutherford was working on a guitar riff for a 2-part album cut on the Invisible Touch album called The Last Domino, and while he was playing, Phil started singing, "She Seems to Have an Invisible Touch." The power trio loved the hook and began building the song from there. And number 1, Throwing It All Away. The second single from Invisible Touch and another huge smash went to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 on the mainstream rock chart, number 1 in adult contemporary, triple threat, number 22 in the UK, and number 12 in Canada. The working titles for Throwing It All Away were Zephyr and Zeppo, for your information. As with the song Invisible Touch, a Mike Rutherford guitar riff was the thrust of the song's development. Throwing It All Away is not a sophisticated number. How do I put this? It's my favorite Genesis song because of Phil Collins' heart-wrenching vocal and the tender lyrics. It's what makes this song an incredibly moving ballad. It's the beautiful simplicity, the fervent empathy that thoroughly captures you.
I don't want to be sitting here trying to deceive you.
Throwing It All Away was made for all of us that have experienced the anguish and the perplexity of a broken heart. The heartbreak of lost love is an awful feeling that's difficult to put into words because the emotional hurting is perhaps worse than actual physical pain. Is there nothing that I can say to make you change your mind? I watch the world go round and round and see mine turning upside down.
And see mine turning upside down.
Throwing it all away. Whereas former Genesis singer Peter Gabriel goes so deep that you can hardly take it in the song released around the same time, Within Your Eyes, Phil doesn't sing in deep metaphors, he just kind of blurts it out there. I talked about it before, Phil Collins is a master vocalist. He's a phenomenal drummer and songwriter, but the way he interprets a song is just truly special. There is a sadness that permeates his approach, a melancholy that envelops our hearts as listeners that very few singers can get to.
'Cause you know, babe, that I don't wanna go.
It's not really about the words with Phil because, like I said, this song isn't deep poetry. It's not the words, it's the voice. If you gave this simple song to another great singer of the era, I'm not sure it would soar like it does with Phil. There's just a magical timbre to his voice. Can't really explain it. It's longing, it's regret, it's sadness, all in one. The best part of this song and why it works so well is because this band gives the song room to breathe. The verse sets up the situation. We cannot live together. We cannot live apart. That's the situation. We've known it from the start. Every time that I look at you, I can see the future because you know I know, baby, that I don't want to go.
'Cause you know, babe, that I don't wanna go.
We get it. The couple has broken up, but instead of going right into the chorus, exposing the broken-hearted feelings with power like most artists would do, the band lets the music just paint the picture. And then Phil gets to the bottom line. He doesn't say, you're throwing it all away. He says, it's almost as if a cry for help in between like sobs, as if he can, it's the only words that he can get out. Throwing it all away. Throwing it all away.
Throwing it all away. Throwing it all away.
And then the musical bed again. Before saying, is there nothing that I can say to make you change your mind? It's simple, so powerful. Mike Rutherford wrote the lyrics. No stranger to boldness and helping us as listeners with empathy as he would, show us a short while later with the regretful father-son song, The Living Years, one of the best songs about fathers and sons ever.
As well as you hear.
The members of Genesis in the 80s were very balanced between art and commerce. They could blow you away with a catchy rocker like Tonight, 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 and on the same album give you a beautiful hit love song with Into Deep, but then they could go deep with a song like Turn It On Again, Man on the Corner, Domino. I guess you could say that they had an invisible touch. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Tonight, tonight, tonight.
Leave us a comment about Genesis in the 80s. What is your 80s fiver for Genesis? You can get their music and their merch by clicking on our Amazon links below. If you like our content, we do invite you to be a part of our community by subscribing below. We'd love to have you. You can also become a patron to unlock even more content, get early access, and help us keep the music alive. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.